Hey everyone, my name is Brittany and I am a former photographer who now digs into the user experience of products and applications that claim to make a photographer's business, and by proxy life, easier to manage. Today we are looking at Imagen AI and their system for culling and editing. But first, what is Imagen AI? Well, Imagen AI is an AI-powered photo editing tool tailored for professional photographers. They offer personalized edits that match your style and evolve with your preferences for elements such as cropping, straightening, and masking. Subscribers to the system also get to try out the beta for the AI culling in order to see how Imagen AI can streamline their image selection process. And we'll be chatting all about both the editing and culling in just a bit. Imagen AI is a hefty tool that can really make a difference in a photographer's workflow. And in order to tackle this massive application, I'll be breaking up the bits we're going to be focusing on into various categories. First up is pricing, because you cannot look at a system without considering its costs. After the pricing is looked at, we'll very briefly explore the application's interface. Then we'll set up our own personalized AI profile. After that, we'll dive into culling with Imagen AI. And a little subcategory here is going to be looking at how the AI did with culling. Finally, we'll roll into editing with Imagen AI. And much like with the culling section, we'll have a final mini gory, which will be looking at how the AI profile did with edits. My plan for looking at this system is to keep everything concise, which I think this collection of categories will greatly help with. The system is large, so my categories are designed to hit the most important points and keep us moving through our workflow. You might have some thoughts on what I should or shouldn't be looking at, and that is perfectly fine. I encourage you to explore this system for yourself and see where it can benefit your business and where it might not work as well. One last point before we get started, I did see a comment on one of my videos asking about Imagen AI, which is where I initially got the wheels turning for another face-off, but with AI editing systems, which is currently in the works. However, Imagen AI, in a moment of true serendipity, approached me to review their system individually after seeing my culling face-off. Knowing that they watched that and still wanted me to check out their system shows they understand my commitment to being unbiased, fair, and just a little bit cheeky in my reviews. Now that we've covered that, let's dive into our first review category, pricing. Imagen AI gives photographers a chance to test out their system with a trial of 1,000 free edits. For someone like me, this means I can experiment with the service for several sessions or even a full wedding, ensuring that I can test it out thoroughly without commitment. This trial lets us explore various aspects of the service before diving into one of their main pricing options. Speaking of which, let's break down those tiers. There's the pay-as-you-go, which costs 5 cents per photo with a minimum monthly fee of $7. If you don't use up the minimum fee, it converts to credits that roll over to the next month. This option offers flexibility with no long-term obligations. And there's the annual plan. This one is designed for different editing volumes. So if you know you edit a lot during the year, or if you have a team, one of these could be a great fit. There's editing 18,000 images for $67.50 per month, billed annually, 36,000 images at $127.50 per month, billed annually, and 72,000 images at $240 per month, billed annually. Personally, the way these tiers are done made my eyes go super wide for a few seconds. Last year, I know I surpassed 18,000 images, but I didn't come close to 36,000. So my initial idea is that if I know I go over one image count, but not another, do I just hope for the best with whatever I choose? I figured out after some searching that Imagen AI does allow for continued editing at the same rate, even if you exceed your plan's quota. This alleviates some worries about going over, but then I'm left wondering if something happened and I couldn't meet the 18,000 images, am I now just leaving money on the table? The annual plan feels a bit steep for me, especially since I can't predict my editing volume accurately. I rarely keep track of the number of images I edit, and this would require a level of mindfulness that isn't really my style. However, if you're more structured and this kind of investment fits your workflow, the annual plan might be perfect for you. Couple of quick notes while I'm editing this video. If it's not clear from my explanation, the annual plans really just add a discounted rate to the price per photo. So if you thought about grabbing the $18K annual plan because you generally end up with that amount of images edited at the end of a year, you'd be paying a discounted rate of 4.5 cents per photo versus the paper picture of 5 cents. Also, additional tools like cropping, straightening, masking, and smoothing skin each cost an extra 1 cent, whether you're on a paper picture plan or an annual plan. This gave me pause because I use these tools frequently, and knowing that each one adds an extra penny significantly increases my costs for both plans. If I'm being honest, it feels like I'm being nickel and dimed. If the extra costs applied only to the paper picture plan, I could understand that, but having the annual plan also require these additional fees is genuinely frustrating. Besides a small discount, there's really nothing too terribly appealing about the annual plans, which sometimes a discount is all you need to be appealed. I believe Imagen could retain and attract more customers by revising their pricing tiers, eliminating image counts, and choosing a single monthly price with added perks onto an annual tier would be more appealing. Look, I don't know Imagen's retention numbers or what their user pain points are, so I can't accurately speak on their gains or losses with their users. But for me personally, my confusion and frustration is starting before I even have experienced the actual system, which is a bit of a yellow flag for me. Again, I don't have the physical numbers for Imagen's users, and I'm sure the current pricing does work for a lot of folks. But as the competition gets to be more fierce for AI editing systems, Imagen's unique approach to pricing may be a turnoff to new and current users. Moving on to our second category, the interface. Imagen AI features a clean and minimalist UI. Upon logging in, we're greeted with a system tour that breaks down the essentials. With no initial content, we are encouraged to start creating immediately through a user-friendly workflow. When we add content, the interface updates to display announcements, example photos from Imagen AI, recent AI profiles, and active projects. I will say the banner of images from other photographers doesn't have much context here. Of course, if you click on them, you're taken to the AI profile that the photographer created. But there's really no information gleaned just from looking at the images. I wasn't even really sure that they were clickable because the banners mentioning new updates to the system aren't clickable. And also, these images are really sparse in information. I'd love to see some sort of call to action on these banner images. Something that tells me I can click on them and get some more information. On the right, the sidebar contains a welcome message, account info, remaining free trial edits, and navigational links typically found in a menu bar. This visibility is great for learning the system and accessing support. Why do I keep saying it like that? Accessing. That's a word. This visibility is great for learning the system and accessing support. There we go. To the left of the home screen, a mini sidebar houses buttons for AI profiles and projects, showing full lists when clicked. We currently don't have much in these sections, so they're a little empty. At the bottom, an account button lets us check info, update the system, and log out. The top UI area includes an uploader quick view and a notification button, which our notifications are totally bare right now. A notable feature of the home UI is the AI profile creation pop-up, which offers options for light, normal, or exploring the profile showcase, which is basically a marketplace. Each setup type is briefly explained, though the light gray text on a darker gray background does fail the accessibility contrast test, which means it may be difficult for some users to read and can reduce overall usability for those with visual impairments. With the AI profile setup page right in front of us, this is the perfect opportunity to move to our next category, setting up an AI profile. I want a fully personalized profile, nothing light for me. So we are going to be uploading over 3,000 images from our Lightroom catalogs to the AI and having it learn our style. 3,000 is the largest amount of images I've seen for any system requirement, and it definitely wasn't the easiest task to complete, mainly because once I'm finished editing a wedding, I move the images to my server, and Imagen doesn't really work well with Lightroom catalogs that have images living on a server. I actually broke the upload process the first time I tried to create a profile. If you have a similar workflow to me, the solution is to export those images from Lightroom into their own catalog, which again could take a good chunk of time. Lightroom will then make copies of the RAWs with the metadata from your edits onto your local machine, which will then make the process for making the personalized AI profile much smoother. When we have our images localized, we'll need to select the catalog, make some additional adjustments to the folders we want selected if need be, upload, and repeat the process until all of our catalogs are selected and our image count is at a minimum of 3,000. Once all of that is completed, the uploading of the images will begin. This upload time took 31 minutes for me, and I uploaded 4,425 images. Give or take the images that Imagen might have disregarded, like copies and JPEGs. With the uploading of images completed and the image bar totally filled, the process for training begins automatically. This was a little anticlimactic for me. I expected a bigger alert to appear once the processing had begun, but instead, the only change was to the status section, which again will fail the contrast test for accessibility. This process does take a bit of time. The total time for uploading and training came in at 7 hours and 19 minutes. So a really super-sized lunch break there if we wanted to wait for the profile before doing any other work that day. Lucky for us, we have editing on our side, and we also have another aspect of Imagen to look at, the culling. So we can set our profile aside for a second and check out how this feature works. For the culling aspect, it is currently only in beta for customers who are subscribed. So I did subscribe to the pay per picture tier, but I still have my trial photo edits left, so I feel pretty okay going this route. After subscribing, our system seems to update immediately to let us know we have access to culling, and we can jump straight in by selecting to create a new project. Our next pop-up is allowing us to choose if we want to cull or edit. After selecting cull, we can then choose our photo format. I have the raw images that I want to use for this culling test already in a separate folder, so I'm choosing photos on the computer. The images are of a wedding, making this selection easy, and we can browse or drag and drop for our images. I have 399 images that I'm going to have the Imagen AI culling sift through. With those in place, we'll quickly make a project name and given the option to check the cull with edit previews box. I'm a little nervous about making this selection, but this won't count against my image count, so we're gonna live a little. This feature gives an idea of what your images will look like with your editing profile applied, which is really fabulous and not something I've seen in other culling software. I'll choose my AI profile and we'll move into the culling preferences. Here is where we can set some parameters for our cull, such as how we want the selections to be marked, and grouping criteria. There's not many selections to be made on this screen, so I am eager to see how the system will parse out these images. With the culling still being in beta, there are some selections like the export format that are currently in production, so we can't mess with that. We'll hit save and then move forward with our upload. This next screen is extremely similar to the screen for our AI profile builder. The Imagen AI interface has great consistency so that each section feels related, which for some systems you don't always get, so I wanted to make note and appreciate it. The actual culling of the images was fairly quick. I know on the screen capture it says the upload alone is going to take 16 minutes, but this is actually very inaccurate. The uploading and the culling took a total of 3 minutes and 17 seconds to make its way through my 399 images. A good speedy cull is always a welcomed thing, but is it any good? Let's check that out in our mini gory how to do. The interface for reviewing is nice. When we first enter the review section, we're greeted with a quick start guide to help us navigate the system. Once comfortable, we see our culling results. 60 keepers, 328 duplicates, which feels high even for an overshooter like me, and 11 images needing review. If you've watched my previous cull face-off, you'll recognize these images as I've used them to test the other culling systems. I'm trying to keep the spirit of competition alive. The images are laid out in a grid view, and hovering over any image shows its duplicates. Double-clicking an image switches to loop view. One downside is that in loop view, we can't use the scroll wheel on our mouse to quickly navigate through the film strip. We have to use the arrow keys on our keyboard, which is less efficient than my current workflow in Photo Mechanic. We can zoom in on images, but with Edit Preview turned on, zooming in drops the preview to check fine details. The system alerts us to this, which is great communication. I like how duplicates appear above the film strip, so there's no additional screen that we need to enter or exit from. But I do still wish they were easier to sift through and a bit larger in size to really make the process of viewing quicker. Some images marked as keepers aren't ones I'd choose to keep. For example, this image of the bride coming down these stairs has a clearer version within the duplicates that I can select by pressing 8 on my keyboard. There's also some duplicates that I feel shouldn't be marked as such. For instance, the first look sequence includes many images of the bride walking to tap the groom on his shoulder. I typically keep this progression because I feel like it builds tension. However, the system marked a large portion of the walk up to the groom as duplicates, so I'll need to go through and correct that. Again, making corrections to the AI is easy enough, so there's no issue there, and perhaps if I had been less strict with my grouping preferences, some of these wouldn't have been marked as duplicates. As I go through the rest of the images, I know if I were to be delivering these images to a client, I would have to go through and make sure each image the AI marked as a duplicate was actually a duplicate, and not something I would regret not sending. I certainly have trust in these AI systems, but I also recognize that the human element is still necessary, especially with culling. I will need to check over these images, so the thing I'd like to see improved is more ways to speed that up, such as introducing more controls, like scrolling through images with the mouse wheel. Before moving into the next section, I do want to talk about parsing out the selected images from the ones not selected. Currently, there doesn't seem to be an easy way to sort culled images into their own area. I attempted to export the photo ratings to see if that would do anything, but when the system wanted me to move to Photo Mechanic, nothing ended up happening. I tried to move through that export photo ratings process twice, and both times the Photo Mechanic connection seemed broken. I also attempted to select all the images and drag and drop them into their own folder, but that doesn't seem doable in this system yet. I have another parsing attempt that I made that I'll chat about more in the editing section, but knowing that the culling aspect of Imagen is still in beta, I don't want to be like way harsh tie on them. I just want to point out where the system currently is and where I anticipate improvements when it's fully launched. One thing that is really great about the system being a one-stop shop is that once we are happy with our culled images, we can roll right into editing, which will keep us moving into our next category, editing with Imagen AI. From the cull screen, we are going to come right up to this Edit Photos button, where a pop-up will appear for some settings like which images to edit, letting us know the filters that are currently on, and the AI profile that will be used for editing. We can also make some extra decisions such as cropping, straightening, smoothing skin, which I'm not going to choose, and subject masking. Now, subject masking is really cool. You've heard me talk about this previously, and it continues to just impress me so much on every system that has it. I just love it. Within Lightroom, the AI will mask out all of the subjects in your images so that you can easily go in and make pointed edits to those subjects without affecting the background. It's really awesome and one that I'd select even if I know I'm not going to be making subject edits, because the convenience cannot be beat. The masking can also be adjusted, so if you typically brighten your subjects or make them warmer, you can account for that. I'm not making any extra adjustments because I don't want to potentially get myself into a blown out mess or anything, so we're leaving it as is. With all of those settings set, we'll click send and away we go into our projects tab. The upload is very quick for edits, and there is some good communication with the uploader for this section. However, when the images move to the editing portion, the communication drops. I do not know how long the system expects editing to take, as there's no longer a progress bar or time estimates. It's just a waiting game. I manually kept track of the time, which took just under 7 minutes to complete. With our edits ready, we can download them and then open them in Lightroom. Referring back to the image parsing, all 399 images will be in the folder we're bringing into Lightroom. The edited images have our color codes from Imagen, making them relatively easy to sort. Within the editing menu, I did attempt to create a new folder for the edits to separate the picked versus unpicked files. However, the system requires the original RAWs to update the XMP files, which totally makes sense. Manually selecting and dragging the correct files into an editing folder is possible, but it feels rather counterproductive for a system designed to speed up my workflow. I do anticipate and welcome future improvements to address this, but for the reality that we are living in right now, we'll be importing all 399 images. After we import the images, we are ready to look over our official edits, bringing us to our editing mini-gory, How'd the AI Do? We can see our color coding from Imagen on our imported images. However, to make sure this mini-gory stays organized between comparing our manual edits versus the Imagen AI edits, while also not throwing off our color perception, I have changed the color coding to be star coding. So our manual edits will be marked with 1 star, and our Imagen AI edits will be marked with 2 stars. It's important to note that I used the AI to cull a selection of raw images from this wedding day after I had already completed my manual edits and delivered the final images to my clients. Since I shot this wedding in October and did my usual picking and editing workflow without Imagen AI, the images the AI selected for culling might not match exactly with the original ones that I chose. Imagen AI did hit some of my selections accurately, but there will be the occasional differences in the images I'm comparing. With our Imagen AI edits, I can tell they are a bit more blue and occasionally greener than I would like. The images I delivered to my clients for this wedding were especially warm because it was an October wedding. So there were plenty of yellows and oranges, and not just in the wedding decor, but also the trees around the venue. The AI gets bluer and bluer as we move through the images, but I will say, even though the temperature isn't quite to my liking, the exposure is spot on. Remember the first image of the bride? This is her now. And I think the AI actually hit the exposure much better than I originally did. I'm really impressed with that aspect of my AI profile. Speaking of impressing me, the subject masking does not disappoint. I didn't have the system make any adjustments at all, but all of these images have the subjects masked and ready for me to make adjustments. One image that I really love is the 2 of them holding hands. My original edit, the shadows are more evened out. With the subjects already masked for me on the AI edit, I don't have to spend any time masking myself. I can just quickly go in, make any adjustments I want, and be done with that image. What I would love to see the AI advance to is individually picking out those subjects and creating a mask for each individual person. Right now, the AI masking across the board with all systems does one mass selection of subjects, which in and of itself is something that blows me away every single time. But I think where it's going, it will eventually be individualized subject masks, and that is something super exciting as well. Another feature we made sure to check off to save us time is cropping and straightening. I've said this before, and I'll say it again and again. Cropping and straightening are two things that can eat up a lot of time. I just assisted my friend as she photographed a conference, and due to the nature of that type of photography, making sure each shot is perfectly in frame and straight is not conducive to the speed at which the events need to be photographed. So I spent a good portion of my time just cropping and straightening. With the AI making those adjustments for me, my time and focus can instead turn back to making sure the temperature, exposure, and images as a whole are a solid representation of the business. Overall, the exposure, cropping, straightening, and masking tools all hit exactly what I was hoping for with my personalized AI profile. My Imagen AI profile really learned and kind of improved my exposure on my images, and that alone takes a massive chunk of time off of my plate when editing. I seriously have no notes for those elements. Temperature, on the other hand, is another story. I have a feeling that the culprit lies within one of the weddings that I uploaded to train the AI. It was a winter wedding, and it was more ethereal in the portraits, and therefore a bit cooler. Lucky for us, we can just keep training our AI by continually uploading more and more sessions and images into it for it to learn from. We can also make some manual adjustments for when we know where our AI was a bit off. I'm going to drag the slider for temperature and tint up just a little bit to hopefully counteract that blue temperature and green tint. Everything else was perfectly fine, so with that, I'll hit save, and the next time I edit with Imagen AI, my edits will potentially be 99% of the way there. That's just my own guesstimate. Imagen AI has a lot going for it. The UI is clean and simple, the AI training process is straightforward, the culling is quick, and the editing gets us about 95% of the way there with our images. It's a fantastic system designed to streamline a photographer's workflow without sacrificing professionalism and image quality. However, there is room for improvement. The UI has some contrast issues with important subtext. Training for the personalized AI profile takes a good bit of time. The culling needs fine-tuning for exporting, and communication while our profile processes editing is lacking. Despite these areas needing refinement, I'm confident we'll see these addressed in the future. Imagen AI appears highly focused on quality improvements and anticipating the needs of their users. The ability to apply pre-edits during the culling process is a stellar feature that I'm not seeing anyone else explore. It's really bridging the gap between culling and editing for a more streamlined performance. I'm excited to see where Imagen AI will go and how their system will continue to evolve. Now, I leave the question in your hands. What do you think of Imagen AI? Their AI editing plus their AI culling beta. Have you tried the system, or are you interested in giving it a shot? If you're curious about how Imagen AI could impact and possibly improve your photo workflow, I do have a link in my bio for you to explore. I gotta say, AI in general is making such a huge splash in the photography world, and seeing how each system does it differently has been pretty awesome. I have so many systems and different facets of the photography AI conversation that I want to dive into, so I hope you're enjoying these little jaunts into the artificially intelligent photo realm. And will consider liking, subscribing, and hitting that little bell to be alerted whenever I release new deep dives and face-offs. If there's ever anything about photography you want me to take a look at, feel free to drop it in the comments. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.